Hello, I'm Janice Karen, Director of Policy, Technology, and Innovation at the Massachusetts Health Data Consortium, or MHDC. I run our Data Governance Collaborative, also known as the DGC. We start each of our weekly meetings with a series of industry quick updates to learn about new and proposed regulations, laws, standards, industry initiatives, and other activity. Join us for this week's updates. And before you go to the first slide, we have breaking news that did not even make it into the slide. This morning, ONC announced that the final version of the HTI-1 rule is available. It is actually a preview. It is not in the Federal Register yet, so it's not official, but they've posted a copy of what should be the final rule on their website with some additional sort of overview documents, and they've announced a schedule of webinars to go over the final versions of various portions of the rule. So not had a chance to look at that in any detail, but when we come back in January, I'm sure that will be one of the first things that we look at, in addition to other regulations that drop in the interim. So that's good news. That was early, so to speak. And why don't we go ahead and go to the first slide then? So the other ONC news, TEFCA is now officially live. The first QHINs were formally announced yesterday on December 12th. There are five that were announced: eHealth Exchange, Epic Nexus, Health Gorilla, Kansa National Network, and MedAllies. They don't really tell much more than that, but you can read the announcement at that link. And we anticipate there will be a morning session at tomorrow's National ONC annual meeting, which will be devoted to TEFCA, so we may find out more there. Any thoughts, questions, comments there? All right, let's go on to the next page. Also from ONC, this kind of slid under the radar. Excuse me. But they have put a US CDI Plus platform up, and it has sections for maternal health, public health, quality, and cancer. You can view the data elements from the data sets, or you can view each of the data sets independently or all of the data elements together. They are presented as flat data, so they're not organized by data class. They're literally listed by data element in a table form, and the data class is one of the fields in the table. There's also a separate on-deck system that's for use supplying new submissions. So there's a link to the platform on the slide, and it's not clear exactly. I have not had a chance to poke around it very much yet, but this will become the area for the official public comments and official publications and versioning and things like that. Very much like the regular USCDI platform on the ONC website functions for USCDI. Any questions or comments or thoughts there? All right, and then let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. ONC has also posted a new blog piece on sort of the last 10 years in patient access. And there are a few interesting data points there. Excuse me. So they sort of level set with where things were at in 2013 and compared it to now. And then they talked about the jump of patients using online portals from 2020 to 2022. And then also a jump in using any type of online access. And they said that more than half of patients are using some form of online access for at least some of their health information as of 2022. And they attribute that growth to the increased availability of portals, the increased need for access when using telehealth, and the increased ability to message their providers via online mechanisms. So you can find the full post there. They have some graphical representations of this data, which is always interesting. But it's just sort of this sort of high-level overview like I said, with these levels of comparisons. Any comments or thoughts or questions there?
They happen to did they look at any EMR vendors in terms of what groups offer, what products offer the best access via portal?
They did not.
Okay.
There are some ONC projects that do things like that, and we can certainly look at some of them in more detail another time.
That's curiosity on my part.
Yeah, I will definitely make a note of that. All right, moving on for now then. So another thing that just happened is that the European Union has officially passed and signed into law its AI Act. And this cements in their AI regulatory framework. And so they focus on these 7 areas, some safeguards for general purpose AI, so AI that can be used for a lot of different types of things, some limitations on biometric identification and law enforcement. This one was really interesting. Bans on using AI for social scoring and also to exploit user vulnerabilities. And that's one that I think is worth looking at more closely because it's really sort of looking at things like disinformation and also how information gets surfaced to people. And I think that's going to be a really interesting thing to look at how they're deciding to handle that. Also requiring consumer rights to complain or launch inquiries about behavior. There are also special obligations for high-risk systems. I did not have a chance to look at what those were, but I would assume that healthcare would qualify in there, I would expect. And then they also require that there are regulatory sandboxes and testing environments to promote innovation in a safe and fair way. So that was also kind of an interesting idea where and that's something that's worth looking at a little bit closer. And then a section on fines for violations. So you can find a press release about it at the link there. Obviously, none of that actually applies to us, but as with privacy, once some of these things start getting passed in the EU, they become fodder for further discussion here. And whether that happens federally or at the state level first, I would expect that this will be getting a very close look and that some of the things that are in this law might make their way over to our side of the pond. So any questions or thoughts there? All right, let's move to the next slide, please. So just a quick note, and this came via email, so I don't have any web information about it, but the CMS is removing 3 of their inpatient rehabilitation facilities measures as of 2024. You can see them on the slide. And so if anyone on the quality measure side works in that area, be aware that these measures are no longer part of any CMS program. All right, moving on. HHS has also put out their cybersecurity strategy. So it highlights the current authorities and programs around cybersecurity and then talks about 4 areas of future focus. Excuse me. Establishing voluntary performance goals for healthcare, providing resources for incentivizing and implementing those goals, having a HHS-wide strategy, and then expanding HHS, having a one-stop shop for cybersecurity within HHS. Did not have a chance to look at this in a lot of detail yet, but the document's there if any of you are interested in reading it, and I definitely will be taking a closer look. Any initial thoughts from anyone? All right, let's move on. So the Joint Commission has created a responsible use of healthcare data certification that is available as of January 1st. I did not look at it in excruciating detail, but it was pretty interesting because when I did try to look at some of the components, even the ones that didn't explicitly mention de-identification in sort of their overview information, it seemed like the that nearly all of the stuff that they talked about, at least in what I saw, was around de-identified data, and it does seem somewhat focused on AI. So while it's not necessarily the content that I would necessarily file under responsible use of healthcare data, but it definitely warrants a little bit of a closer look, and it does cover the areas that are listed on the slide. So there's a press release about the new program, and then the certificate information itself at the second link. Any thoughts or comments or questions there? All right, next slide, please. If you'll pause there for a moment. I hope you learned a lot from our quick updates. If you're interested in finding out more about the DGC and its other activities, email me at dgc@myhealthdata.org. That email address is also on your screen.